Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Beyond the Frame Live. I'm Dottie San Martin, and I'll be your host today. Also, we have Orly Rivera as the co-host today. Hi, Orly.
How's it going? I'm here.
It's going great. Well, Orly, today we have a special guest. I'm definitely in awe of him. We have Jim Cripps. And for those of you that aren't familiar with Jim, he recently shot a perfect 300 game. Hang on, backwards, which is just amazing. I struggle sometimes doing things forward. I can only imagine doing it backwards. Although, as I said earlier, maybe I ought to try that. Maybe I can perfect it a little better backwards. So, well, welcome, Jim.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on. And if you guys need some tips on how to get started bowling backwards, I'll be glad to be the coach.
There we go.
Well, wonderful, wonderful. Well, Orly, start us off here.
Yeah, I mean, first question I got, which I'm sure you get asked a million times, but how did this all come about, the backwards bowling?
Yeah, so, growing up, I was not a bowler. When I was probably 4 years old or so, my parents bowled one league in Nashville. And, back then there was kind of like a daycare type situation in the bowling center. And so, I got to come out at the end of the night and I would be able to bowl, throw one ball. And that was the extent of my bowling. And then fast forward, in college, I went a couple of times. And then, in 2001 or 2000, a bowling center in the town I lived in, Clarksville, Tennessee, it was called the Pinnacle Family Entertainment Center. It opened. So it was a new bowling center, a new bar, new entertainment. So it was the happening spot. So I go out with some friends. And again, I'm not a bowler, but a couple of my friends were. And they were giving me such a hard time because I was terrible. I mean, you imagine if you'd only been, a handful of times in your life and you go and everybody else is a bowler, a real bowler, and you're not. And so I was getting some pretty good razzing. And here I am, I'm 22 years old-ish, maybe 23. And just so happened the same night, because it was a happening spot, some of my customers, I ran a local wireless store at the time, and some of my customers just happened to be on the next lane over. And a few minutes later, another lane of my customers came in. And so now we've got about 10 people that know how to bowl and Jim who does not. And, we get to bowling, having some fun, doing what young adolescents do. And I was so terrible and they were giving me such a hard time and they would not ease up that as a joke, I rolled a ball behind me. And the first ball was a strike. It was a total fluke. It was not pretty. But it struck. And instantly I turned around and they were angry. They were upset. And you think about a young 20-something, I was like, really? That's all I got to do to upset you guys? I'm going to do that some more. And so they said, all right, in all seriousness, you couldn't do that. And I said, well, what's keeping me from doing it? I just did it. They said, no, but seriously, that's not how you bowl. Yeah, that's not going to happen again. And so they bet me any ball in the pro shop, I could not shoot 150. And so, I mean, somebody says it can't be done, I've got to go do it. And so it took about 6 weeks. I shot 163 and I, won the bet. But you fast forward and I got so much more out of it. I mean, by the time I shot 163, I was better backward than I was forward. I had far more games backwards than I had forward. And I just never turned around. And because of that, I've bowled all over the world with Hall of Famers and just the most amazing people. And my favorite thing about this, so if you took away the TV appearances and you took away the articles and the interviews and the podcast, you take all that away, would I still do what I do? And I absolutely would. Because think of the last time you went to a bowling center by yourself even.
Mm-hmm.
Did you talk to anybody else while you were there? Did anybody come up to you and start a conversation? Did you come out with 2 new acquaintances or friends?
Mm-hmm.
Odds are no.
Mm-hmm.
People go to a bowling alley to enjoy the people that they came with or get in some practice and then they leave. And when I go into a bowling center, there is a little bit of a downside. So I'm always on stage. So if you're a forward bowler, you can go into a bowling center anywhere in the world. You can throw a practice game. And if you shoot 105 or 140 or 190, nobody's going to pay attention. I can't go in and practice and fly under the radar. So I'm on stage every single time I throw a ball, for attitude, for my presence on the lane, for how I bowl, all of those things. But it inspires people to walk up and ask the same question you just asked. And often it ends in a handshake or a new Facebook friend, or can I take a picture? Can I take a video? I want to share it with my friends. I want to tell my dad I saw you. All of those things. I mean, just this past weekend. So my son was not a fan of bowling. He had no interest until he was a part of my 300 game. And now all of a sudden bowling is cool. And
Okay.
honestly, if nothing else came from my 300 game, that's well worth it for me that my son has an interest in bowling, because I've never pushed him to do that. I wanted him to come to it on his own if he did, or not if he didn't. And so we go bowling.
Forward or backward?
Forward. My whole thing with him is, if he wants to learn how to bowl backwards, that's totally fine after he's mastered bowling forward.
Okay, that's fair enough.
And yeah. And so, well, I don't want to impose that on him either.
Mm-hmm.
And so we go bowling and we're out there having a good time. And the lane next to us, we chatted just a little bit because, obviously I can't hide. And, I had I think I had a 190 game and a, 220 game. And one of the guys has just got the biggest smile on his face you've ever seen. And he goes, man, my dad sent me your video years ago. And I just got a question. Can I get a picture with you to send to him? And I was like, absolutely. I mean, bring it in, because I want him to remember how excited he was in a bowling center, not how excited he was with me. Like, no, how excited were you when you went bowling?
Yeah.
So
for sure.
Anyway, a long answer to your question of how did this start, but I don't think I'd have been doing it any justice if I hadn't shared that tidbit.
So you mentioned, go ahead, Dottie.
No, I'm just curious, what was the hardest part? I mean, obviously it comes somewhat natural for you, but there had to be one part of it that was the hardest for you to overcome. What was that?
Well, I'll tell you, none of it came natural. So
Okay.
I didn't know how to bowl, much less know how to bowl backwards. So, I'm tackling something. One, I don't know the mechanics of bowling, period. And then two, there's no script, there's no manual, there's nobody to copy. In fact, when I set the Guinness World Record back in 2006, when I contacted them, the Guinness World Record was 139. So nobody was any good at this. Even the few people that had tried it, there was no example to go after. And so I beat my head against the wall. I mean, I didn't know how to roll the ball. I didn't know the mechanics of turning the ball. I didn't know what kind of ball I needed. And there was no manual. There was no, even the pro shop guys just scratched their head. These days it's pretty easy for me to explain. I'm a right-handed guy, so I need a right-handed grip in the bowling ball, but I'm going to be rolling it the left-hand side. So drill it on the left, drill it like you would for a lefty, but I need to put my right hand in it. And, so that clears some of that up. But I mean, it was all trial and error to begin with. And so the first year, maybe even 2 years, I released the ball with my hand on the wrong side of the ball. So the ball backed up on the way down the lane. It was fighting me. I was never going to get any speed that way.
Mm-hmm.
Now I throw about 16 miles an hour, and there was no way back then. I mean, if I was throwing it 10 miles an hour, I was doing good.
And you mentioned that record, that Guinness Book of World Records. How like the details of the record, how much in depth did they go into that? Because I know you throw backwards. And when I was explaining to people we're going to have you on the show, they're kind of like, oh, does he does he just kind of stand backwards, but then look and throw? I'm like, no, he doesn't even really look. He just throws it. And that's what's interesting too, is you literally set up just like somebody would forward. So, I mean, is it, you can't look backwards? Is there certain rules to that when they're going for that record? Are they pretty specific? And another question on that is, does somebody have to come out like a representative for the Guinness Book of World Records? I always wondered how that kind of worked.
It's very specific. They send you the guidelines and the rules, and, it can take years to get approved. Now, if you got big money behind it, you can pay for an official to come out, but, unless you're, dude perfect and you're breaking a bunch of records or you've just got huge financial backing behind it, that's not for regular people, to be honest. And so, I started attempting the record at, I think 2002, 2003. but I didn't want to set a record that somebody could easily beat. And so, the 278 that I set back then, it was in a Fox interview. And typically in an interview, you're not going to bowl a whole game. It was just a fluke because her cameraman got the flu, and she knew I was traveling in from Atlanta. I was out of town when she called to see if I would do the interview. And so I get there, there's no cameraman, and which turned out to be a good thing. But at the same time that I was bowling, the guys that ran Ebonite and Hammer just happened to be doing some ball testing at the end of the center. And so she sets up and she goes, just do your thing, and then afterward we'll do a little interview. And so I shoot 278 during the interview, and she goes, "Oh my gosh, does that happen every time?" And I said, "Absolutely not. I'm going to need a copy. That's the new Guinness World Record." So anyway, there's a lot that goes into it. They've got a lot of rules. They're very specific about what you can and can't do. Some of it even goes against traditional bowling and how we see things. But again, it's their rule book. They get to choose how they want it, and but it's fun. Every piece about this, I would not change a thing.
So what's your next goal? 300.
I got a 300. I want another 300 quick, and I want an 800. And I don't really buy into naysayers because I just don't let negativity in my world. If I did, I would have stopped. I would have stopped doing this before it even started. But kind of the way I look at things is, I want to go big, so big that you got nothing to stand on. No, you can't even talk to me about whatever it is, and that's in business too. I remember years ago, I grew Nashville's fastest growing business. We were Nashville's fastest growing business 2017, 2018. I came in second in 2019. We grew from $6 million a year to over $100 million a year. And one of those times the company was literally in the balance. It was either make or break.
Mm-hmm.
And the franchise that we were with put a requirement on us in order to stay in business. Even though we were growing like crazy, they put this requirement on us to stay in business. And I told my team, I trained my team every single week, just like, or every single month in person, just like a coach would.
Mm-hmm.
And because I really look at growing people, just that coaches do that much better than most people in business. And so that's how I model my coaching style. And so I went to my team and I said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to destroy this goal by so much that they would never ask us to do it again. And we ended up, there was two different goals, and we were 1,710% to one goal and 1,211% to the other goal.
Wow.
And sure enough, nobody ever asked me, nobody ever threw out another ultimatum.
Yeah.
They knew.
Well, I wonder why.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Well, it seems like you're a good teacher. Would you ever be interested in teaching backwards bowling, or is this something you want to keep kind of unique to yourself and like not want to share the tricks of the trade?
Man, honestly, I'm an open book. I'm one of those people. I want to further the sport by any means necessary. There were a few people that were like, I tried this. Actually, there's a couple of YouTubers out there. 220 average bowler. He did a video. I mean, give me some huge props. He was like, man, he's like, I don't understand how this is not viewed millions of times, because this guy just did the most amazing thing. And so a shout out to him. And there was another, he bowled 62, because my first game backwards was a 48. And he goes, I'm gonna give this a try. I'm gonna record it, and I'm gonna give an honest number. And he shot 62, which is respectable. And then another guy did another video, and I think he shot 20 something, and he gave it a good effort, but I think he gave up about 2 frames before the end. He goes, this is not for me. And that's all right.
Yeah.
And you mentioned all the positivity you get from this, whether it's people coming up to you and people taking pictures. What about the negativity? You said there are some naysayers. How often do you come across people kind of saying like, hey, this isn't, and is there a rule against that in league bowling? Can you not bowl backwards? I'm sure somebody has at least told you that, but is that a rule or?
No. So here's the beautiful thing, and we'll get to how this came to be, but years ago, the USBC did me this huge favor. And I forget what year it was, like 2006, 2007, maybe 2008, somewhere in there. They actually made me part of the rule book. And they were like, Jim, you'll never get questioned about whether this is legitimate or not again, because we're going to make sure that it's clear that it is legitimate.
Very
And
nice.
so when you got to the section about delivery, there it was. And I wish I still had a copy of that, but if anybody's got one of those, I think '07 is the year. But you get plenty of negativity. Here's the thing. Anytime you are pushing the envelope, anytime you are winning, you are going to get haters, period. Anytime you are breaking from tradition, you are going to get haters. So if you're making big moves, you're going to get haters. And so you almost have to look at it. And I didn't look at it this way years ago, but through business and through just personal growth and, 20 years of doing this, I've learned that if you have haters, you are doing something right. Keep pushing, push like nobody's business. Just go after it. And so, sure, I've gotten haters, and on this latest accomplishment, shooting 300 backwards, there were, on the original post that one of the guys at the bowling center posted, I think it's about 440,000 views. On Hammer's site, I think it's around 80,000 views. Almost 700 shares, 4,300 shares on the original one on Facebook, about 140,000 views on my on my YouTube channel. And I scoured all of those shares, every single share that somebody posted. I liked their share, and I commented if it was something I could comment on to thank them. And we're talking about thousands of comments. I spent crazy amount of hours, but I wanted people to understand that I was paying attention and that I appreciated what they had to say. And there were probably 10 or 15 people that had snarky or, downright nasty things to say. And pretty well every single one of those. So I responded to them all, unless there was one comment that was just filthy. It wasn't even about me. It was just somebody being nasty.
Yeah.
But aside from that, even the negative comments, I responded to them. And I said, hey, you're entitled to your opinion. I appreciate you checking it out. And you know what? When you post your 300 video, I'll be sure to cheer you on. And I'm always going to hit whatever comes at me with positivity. I'm not going to say you can't push me far enough to where you get something else, but 99 out of 100, it's not about that. And to be honest, like it's up to me at how I respond, period. And a lot of people don't take ownership of themselves in that regard. They want to say, oh, well, I was provoked. Okay, well, people have been provoking people since the beginning of time. And the only thing that you have control over is how you react to it. And so I try to hit everything with positivity to let people know, hey, I'm going to be here cheering you on. You can say what you want to say. And several people actually commented, even on other channels, like they actually said, hey, I hit him with a pretty sideways remark. And when he came back to me, with positivity, I came back and said, hey, man, I'm sorry. Like, I didn't realize it was like this. I didn't realize you worked this hard at it, those types of things. Mm-hmm. And so, again, collect haters. You want as many, but here's the thing. For all those, 10, maybe 15 negative comments out of thousands. And it's crazy how many people said, I took my family bowling this weekend. In fact, if we backed up to high school, all right, I was voted most trustworthy. I was not, if there was a least likely to be on the cover of the sports page, it was me. And yet in 2005, I was on the cover of the sports page. And I was actually on a flight the next week after that. And a guy recognized me and he goes, do you know we took our family bowling because of your article? And that's what I'm about. I am all about getting people interested in bowling. If they're interested in it long-term, great. But the great part about bowling that is not the case in every sport is whether you're 2 or 92, you can come with your family or your friends or a group of people and you can have a good time and enjoy each other's fellowship. It's hard to do that with baseball. Baseball is America's pastime. I get that. But a 92-year-old playing baseball, they're going to be on the cover of the sports page. That's not normal.
Or on the Savannah Bananas one, right?
That's right.
Showing the entertainment aspect.
Absolutely. But, what a great sport we have. that allows so many different levels of proficiency for those people to come together and have a good time.
Yeah.
And was that your bowl, before we move on, was that your normal bowling center you go into where you bowled that, or?
Yeah, so that just happened. So this 300 was not supposed to happen, guys. It was just all the things that came together for this to happen is just crazy. And so if you back up about 2 months before this happened, I'd actually shared with Ron Hickland, who owns CTD where I'm at right now. I shared with him, I said, I need your help. And he goes, what do you need help with? And I said, Ron, I want to get better. I want to shoot 300 before the end of the year. And so we kept kind of missing each other a little bit. And I had planned on being here to do that. And I get a phone call from one of my new guys on my team. He moved here from out of town. I had a team member that had taken a new job and wasn't able to bowl. And so Brandon Hurst joined my team. And fast forward to just a few weeks ago, he called and he said, hey, I'm sure you're probably already bowling, but I'm looking for a doubles partner for the city tournament. And I said, man, I haven't bowled the city tournament in probably a decade, but yeah, I'll bowl with you. And so we get about a week out from the tournament and I get a splinter off of a piece of plywood in my thumb, my bowling thumb. And I tried to get it out and it didn't come out. And so, I was just pushing through it. I bowled one night of league with it in there and it was terrible. And fast forward, and the morning of, I wake up and my thumb is so swollen, there's no chance it's going in a bowling ball. It's got fluid on it. I mean, it's nasty. I don't want to go into all the gory details, but it was ugly. There was no bowling that was going to happen that day. And my wife goes, what are you going to do? You're going to call him, let him know you can't go? I said, I'm not doing that. And for those that know me, that's just not me. She goes, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to drain it. And so I go get an 18 gauge needle and drain it. And still it hurt so bad I couldn't get it in a bowling ball. And my wife goes, what are you going to do? And I said, I'm getting the splinter out of here. So I open it up, get it out of there. And at this point, now I'm in a bad mood. And like I said earlier, I'm on stage all the time, even if it's at my home center. Somebody there brought somebody in from out of town and they're going to be watching, so it's not, Jim can't have a bad day. On top of that, my son, who almost never gets to go to the bowling center with me because adult leagues are at night, right? After bedtime and all those things. And so he was going to go with me that day. And so I had to give myself a pep talk there in the mirror. And I said, Jim, you gotta get together. And a lot of people think self-talk is not real. And I'm here to tell you, I believe in it wholeheartedly. And whatever you believe in is real, just plain and simple. And so I don't know why I said this, but in the mirror that morning, I said it'd be a good day for a 300. And I laughed. And so I go out, I take a couple Advil, I take a B12 shot, and I'm like, all right, well, let's blow it up. Let's get out of here. So I get to the bowling center, and Miss Brenda Green, who's just an absolute rock star, she used to work for Ebonite here in Hopkinsville, and she was in the marketing department. She's been a part of the youth bowling here in Clarksville for at least 2 decades. And she was checking me in at the tournament. And so she asked about Castle, and I said, yeah, Castle got to come with me today. And I joked and I said, I thought it'd be a good day for a 300. And she goes, oh my gosh, Jim. She goes, this place would be on fire. And so we kind of laughed it off, and I went to the lanes. And so we had plenty of time. So I like to stretch as much as possible beforehand so that I'm not tight, get loosened up, get ready for the game. And we had an abnormal amount of time for that because we were a good 30 minutes early. So I'm stretching, go over and meet the 2 guys that are bowling with us on this pair, and they're from Ohio. And so I did go ahead and let them know. I said, hey guys, I don't bowl like everybody else. So, I hope I'm not throwing you off your game or anything. And, older bowlers, somebody that's in their teens or something, young adolescent, I'm probably going to throw them off their game. And that's not my desire. That's not what I'm trying to do. Mm-hmm. But if you got a little bit of gray hair, well, we're probably all right, because you've seen enough stuff. You're not going to be fazed by me. And so we get ready and we start bowling. And I shoot 192 out of the gate. I tried a couple different balls, just trying to get a feel for what pattern was out and what we had going on that day. And the last ball of that game struck, and it felt good off the hand. And so I'm going to go ahead and segue here for just a little bit. This is this is what my best practice for any bowler. If you're trying to get better, I'm going to share this best practice right now. You should record your middle game every single time, because your first game, you might be tight. You know, your bowling ball may not be the same temperature it is in the bowling alley. You fill in the blank with a lot of different things that could be going on. But your second game, if your mechanics are strong, your second game, you should be dialed in. And so typically that's where you need to make those tiny changes. You know, you're coming into the pocket, but maybe you're coming in a little high, or maybe you're coming in a little bit light, or maybe you need to change that angle just a little bit. At that point, that's really what that second game is about. And so I record my games on the second game, and I review the footage between each shot to look to see, did I miss something? Did it read the same way I thought it was going to? That type of deal. And so it being a tournament, I did the same thing. Start recording. And so 1 strike, 2 strikes, 3 strikes, 4 strikes, 5 strikes. Number 6, I came in a little bit light. And so I reviewed the footage. Actually, sorry, number 5, I came in a little bit light. Number 6, I come in a little bit heavy. And we had a blackout, so it took just a minute. And I always use the pen. This is another best practice out there. So I always use the pen on my note, because you can click the button and start it recording.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it had been long enough that my video camera timed out. So a lot of people asked, well, why don't you have number 7 recorded? And it's because it took a picture instead of taking a video, because it had timed out.
Ah.
So I get back to the lane and I realize it didn't take the video. And now I don't have the video to look at to adjust. And so I'm aggravated. And so I get up there for number 8. And as I walk up on number 8, they call the 50-50 ticket. And as they're calling it, I know that it is dangerously close to my number. And I can remember it like it was 2 seconds ago. I said out loud, "Don't let me win." And because I knew if I was going to get luck today, I wanted the luck on the lane and I wanted the strike. I didn't want some money. And so the very next person, the person that bought after I did, won the 50-50.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. And so, but it was a relief, because as soon as I knew that, I was like, I'm good. And I was trying to figure out how I was going to get my son to come over, because he was playing with a friend of his that just happened to be at the bowling center as well. And about that time, my son walked up and said, "Hey, Dad, can I go to the arcade?" And I said, "You absolutely can, but I need you to sit right here and watch these next 4 strikes." And I heard the guys around me kind of snicker a little bit. And so I get up there for number 9, pocket strike, number 10, number 11. And between 11 and 12, I came over and my son wanted to give me a fist bump. And so I give him a fist bump. And right after that, so right as I turn around, I had just a small mental break. And what happened was, I said to myself, not out loud, but in my head, I thought for just a half a second, no matter what happens, this is going to be a great game. And I'm so glad that they did not get this on video, that mine didn't pick it up and neither did theirs, because I cussed myself. I was mad. I was like, nope, you cannot let that enter your head. We are not playing to not lose. We are playing to win. You're here to shoot 300. You're here to show people that what should be impossible is not just possible, but you're going to do it right here, standing in front of them. And you're going to inspire your son to know that big things are possible if you absolutely demand it of yourself. Mm-hmm. And I know I got in on a little bit of a soapbox there, but I had to give myself that kind of talk. And so I wasn't nervous. I've been in that situation before. I've gone 11 in a row and been so nervous that I threw the ball to be safe. I didn't throw the ball to demand a strike. And that day I demanded a strike. And there was no question. I mean, you can hear people in the background going, "Get there." I knew it was there. And aside from, something crazy like a stone 8 or something nuts going on, that was a 300. And I kept it together post 300 celebration there. I mean, I know I yelled, but it was much more mild than I thought was going to happen. If you'd asked me years ago, how are you going to react on your first 300? Felt like I've kept it together pretty good.
Wow. I'm sure your son was absolutely thrilled to be a part of that process as well.
He,
Well,
you know, he
Jim,
was, and you can see the excitement on his face. I'm so thankful. Travis, he's the one that posted the video online, and 400 and something thousand views. And I was glad because he was at the back tables recording it. So it got the interaction between my son and I when I came out, and he
nice.
gave me the fist bump between 11 and 12. And I'm so proud of that because, and I'll throw this out there too. I was so confident that I was going to shoot 3 that I did something that people don't do. So you think about anybody else that's getting up in the 10th frame. If you watch the video that I've got out there, it shows clearly that when I got up to throw my my first ball in the 10th frame, there was a split on the left-hand side. And so there was I think it was a 4-7-10 on the other lane. Most people would not do that. And I don't want to say I'm embarrassed because I'm not embarrassed. I was so arrogant in that moment that I was going to demand a 300 of myself that I wasn't willing to back off the lane. And
Good for you.
I almost just wish that for other people. Like,
Yeah.
know yourself well enough that you know that superstition or what everybody else would do. Because I even thought about it. I walked up there and I saw the split and I thought other people would stop. And I was like, I'm not everybody else.
Wow. Wow. Well, that's certainly a message for our viewers, there's so much to be said about the mental game. And I think you're a great example of that. So, well, we would love to see you do that in person, but your videos are just amazing. And, a huge congratulations for
Thank you so much.
accomplishing that. And especially because your son got to be a part of it. I think that's so special. So, is there any message of hope that you would like to leave our viewers with today?
Absolutely. So, I've been so fortunate, to kind of throw the timeline out there. I started bowling in 2001, 2002. And if you'd have said, hey, Jim, you're going to be on the cover of the sports page, or you're going to be in national news. You're going to go all over the world doing TV shows. People are going to call you for interviews. You're going to be sponsored. You're going to have bowling ball manufacturers that support you. Any of those things, I would have laughed. It was so far out of the realm of reason that you'd have to be crazy to believe it. But all of those things happened. Whether we're talking about the first TV interview that I was ever in and sound like I don't know, you could tell it was the first time I was ever on television, to doing trick shots live in Las Vegas. And my favorite part about doing trick shots, because for a long time I took myself so serious, and we talked about that a little earlier, I took myself so serious that I wouldn't consider a trick shot. And Bob Learn, Mr. 300 himself, I was bowling with him at a trick shot show once, and he said, Jim, what kind of trick shots do you do? And I said, I don't do trick shots. This is how I bowl. And he just kind of laughed, and he goes, Jim, all the greats have trick shots. And so I started practicing trick shots. And whether we're talking about that 300 game or whether we're talking about making trick shots live to wow people, the most awesome part about it is when you do something that seems like it should be impossible, the look of wonder on children's faces is pretty normal. Like we've grown accustomed that the look of wonder that, oh my gosh, did that just happen? That's almost exclusively reserved for children, because there's so much in the world that they see for the first time. And if you're lucky, you get to see that look on their face.
Mm-hmm.
And my favorite part is when you see a 50, 60, 70-year-old person get that look of wonder on their face, because what they just saw, what their eyes showed them, they do not believe in their heart is possible. And so they want to see it again. And it's just that look of wonder on their face. It's just fantastic. It's almost like it's almost like the spirit of Christmas. You know, we're right here at the holidays, and
Yeah.
and you know, it's all about believing. And that person goes from, you know, even if they're cynical, there's all that look of, oh my gosh, did that just happen? No, surely that didn't happen. And so I want you to believe in yourself. I used to tell my team all the time, you're the cap. And what I meant by that is no matter what it is that you're doing, whether we're talking about the standards that you set in your home, whether we're talking about what you think you can do in business, whether we're talking about how well you can bowl, how good your children can be, whatever that situation is, if you're the leader, almost no one is going to believe more about it or believe that it's more is possible than you. So you better make sure that you set that bar high enough and don't accept anything less, and make sure that you make it known, because that's how you're going to demand that of yourself. If you're quiet about it, I mean, even me shooting 300, it took me telling people months before that I wanted to shoot 300 before the end of the year. Those words had never come out of my mouth before. I don't think I thought I deserved to shoot 300 before that. And if we backed up in 2009, I was a better bowler mechanically in 2009 than I am today. But my mental game is 10x what it was back then.
And that's so important.
It is. You're not going to make micro adjustments if you haven't already dealt with the mechanics. And you're not going to make micro adjustments if your mental game is not strong, because otherwise you're distracted by everything else that's going in the bowling center. And so, you know, it's any type of high performance, regardless of the arena we're talking about. There's a lot of work that's got to go in before that. It's not like you go out and it just accidentally happens. People don't accidentally become successful. People don't accidentally shoot 300. People don't accidentally do great things. You do it because you set out to do it. And so I just want people to be intentional about their lives, whether they're intentional about giving, whether they're intentional about how they raise their kids, whether they're intentional about the content that they put in their brain. You know, I haven't watched the news but twice in 8 years. One of those times my wife was in the hospital and that's all they play in there, which I don't know how anybody gets better with that on the TV. But the other time my dad was on the news. And so I don't let that negativity in the world or in my world. And at the same time, that it also better prepares you to deal with haters. Because if you come at it with, if so much negativity has soaked into you that it's all you can do to try to be positive, well, you're just fighting an uphill battle. So surround yourself with positivity.
Absolutely. Well, I think that is set your goal and believe in yourself is definitely words of wisdom. So obviously you've done it and it's worked well for you. So we really appreciate, Jim, you being with us today. I'm sure that you have quite a busy schedule with all the publicity that you've recently received, but we really appreciate you being our guest today and sharing with our viewers your journey of how you got to where you are today.
Thanks so much. And I wouldn't be here without the people that have supported me through the years. I mean, my family, my dad literally is probably my biggest fan. And, you know, obviously my wife and son, you know, my whole family, of course, all of them, but my bowling family too. I mean, it was extra special that it was there in front of the hometown crowd, you know. And then, you know, Ron Hicklin at CTD, just an amazing guy doing amazing work in the bowling industry. The guys out at Hammer, Brian Graham, if y'all don't know Brian Graham, oh my gosh, that guy's a rock star. I mean, all the way back from, you know, when he was at USBC and when he was a Hammer brand rep, and, you know, now he's running Brunswick, you know, just an amazing individual. Yeah. And just all the people at USBC that put on a great tournament, and the proprietors. I mean, if you have not thanked a proprietor lately, please do so. They get calls all the time, people wanting to buy the real estate and put something else there. But they fight this battle. They literally, they come in and they do battle every day, trying to make sure that we still have a nice place to bowl so that newcomers can enjoy with friends, and maybe they discover that they have a passion for bowling. Or maybe it's a 3-year-old that sees bowling on TV and they need a place to go. There's too many places now that don't have bowling centers. And so please be thankful. Please show your appreciation for those proprietors. they're just absolutely fantastic.
I totally
And
agree.
and last but not least, the PBA, those guys work so hard. Oh my gosh. And Tom Clark leading the charge. He's just an absolute rock star. I love those guys. And thank goodness that we have professional bowling on TV. It's there to inspire people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Jim, thanks again for joining us this afternoon. And I hope that you're all ready for the holidays because they're just around the corner. So
They absolutely are.
Beyond the Frame viewers, we appreciate you tuning in with us today. And if you have any questions for Jim or for Orly or I, leave them in the comment section and we'll be happy to get back with you.
Absolutely.
We appreciate your time, everybody. Bye.